I'm Niamh Cassidy, a former social care worker who, after having my own children, found a calling as a childbirth educator and lactation consultant. Back when I started this journey, I faced the same challenges many of you might be experiencing right now, struggling to get enough clients to make my business viable long term. I knew in my heart that I had the skills and knowledge to make a difference, but the thought of marketing and selling left me feeling a bit uneasy. I didn't want to compromise my authenticity and values just to attract clients. I invested in trainings and mentorships, and I tried various strategies that I learned, but it often felt like I couldn't implement a lot of it because what I was being taught didn't match my values as a birth and postpartum worker. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hand. I embarked on a mission to learn, to experiment, and to find ethical and authentic ways to share my expertise, support my clients, and build a sustainable practice. Today, I'm proud to say that I run a thriving private practice, and I'm here to share my insights with all of you to help you to do the same. Join me on this journey as I help you bridge the gap between your passion for supporting new parents and the success you deserve. Together, we'll discover the power of ethical, authentic, and effective approaches, not only to make a living, but also to make a positive impact in the world of birth and postnatal care. Let's get started on this empowering journey together. Hello, everyone. I am very excited to have you here with us again for another episode of the podcast. And I'm very excited to have Christine Staricka with me again. Christine is an internationally board certified lactation consultant and a trained childbirth educator. She's the host of the Evolve Lactation Community, which is a membership and coaching program for aspiring and new lactation consultants, and some not so new because I'm also in it as well. Christine is an experienced speaker and she is a faculty member of the Gold Lactation Academy, and I am delighted to have you with us again, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you for having me back, Niamh. I love talking to you.
Great. It's so nice to have you. So today we said we're going to talk about ethics in our work. So as business owners, but in the birth and postpartum space, how do we navigate some of those ethical things that might come up for us? And, some of that comes into, and we'll go into different areas, but the WHO code of marketing breast milk substitutes. And then some of it is just about what is in alignment with us or what isn't. But it can be a hard thing for people to navigate when they're doing this work as a business.
You're so right about that. And I think that one thing to remember is that wherever you are in your career at this point, it's going to be a process that unfolds as you go through. You can't sit down at the beginning of your career and say, this is me, this is my ethics. It unfolds, things change. And I can't even count how many things have changed just in the time since I've been in IBCLC. There's just new opportunities, there's new things out there. And we have to change as companies change also. We know that formula companies changed how they market formula when hospitals started using the baby friendly hospital initiative and keeping them out. They learned to redirect their efforts to physician offices and other places to market their wares. So we have to do the same thing. We have to constantly assess what's out there and make decisions, that feel right for us now, that are current and modern. And sometimes that means bringing in guidelines like the WHO code. And sometimes, it's a personal value decision, or it's a personal decision that has to do with your business ethics. And whether your business is just you or you're part of a practice, those things may be a little bit different. I work also in a group practice. So sometimes when we discuss ethical or moral issues, we do have to have a conversation among the group and come to consensus on that. It's not just me and what I think.
Absolutely. And even with things like the WHO code, there is guidelines within that, but there are also interpretations of that. And there are the words of the guidelines. And then there are what people would think of as the ethos of the code or the spirit of the code rather than just the words that are there.
Yeah, I just had a great conversation with some people last week about the spirit of the WHO code. And that's an important thing to think about. Not only is there a misunderstanding sometimes of what the WHO code is for, but what is the spirit of it? And also just understanding there's so much we have to know about it as IBCLCs because we want to know the history of it. Why was it written? how is it implemented or not implemented, depending on where you are, and how it's regularly reassessed. We were talking to somebody outside the profession who wasn't aware that it's regularly updated through the World Health Assembly with resolutions that address things that are modern and new. Like for instance, when they started to see the marketing of toddler milks, they realized that this was a huge market that the formula companies were approaching, and they were starting to get a lot of traction in it. They used the World Health Assembly discussions and conversations to create new resolutions that looked at the science and said, look, this is a completely unnecessary product. And because it's also related to infant formula or breast milk substitutes, we need to address this in these new resolutions that are part of the code. And so those resolutions help us to tie all of those things together, because the code is not actually only just about breast milk substitutes as far as formula, but anything that could potentially take the place of human milk, especially during those first crucial 6 months where exclusive breastfeeding or exclusive human milk is so important.
Absolutely. And as lactation consultants, you and I are, it's very much to the fore of our mind around the WHO code, but it might not be something that is spoken about readily in all birth and postpartum work or in all trainings for doulas or for childbirth educators or for different people who are also in contact with the same group. So, if you were to describe it in a couple of sentences, how would you describe what the WHO code is?
Well, that's a really good point. There's plenty of people who have access to that same population, people who are trying to conceive, people who are pregnant, and people who have just had babies. And what the WHO code really is a code of marketing guidelines to help prevent companies from taking advantage of potential and new parents in a time where they may not have the access to information that they need to make informed choices about how they feed their babies and children. So that's really what it's all about. I mean, to me, that's what the spirit of the WHO code is. It's just putting that barrier in the way of marketing that could potentially change someone's mind when it's coming from a non objective source. We want to see people have good health because they've made wise decisions based on science and based on things that are important to them, not based on a company's marketing. Although the WHO code only covers certain products and certain things, we want to extend what we think about as our ethics and morals as lactation care providers and birth workers to all types of products that are now being marketed to expectant and new parents. There's so many tools and products and devices out there that are regularly being pushed in the faces of people that make it feel like in order to breastfeed, you have to have this, buy that, order this thing, use this other thing. And depending on where you are in the world, it can be very overwhelming and it can be very intimidating, especially if you are a parent who doesn't have access to a lot of resources to be buying things. And what we know is that people don't actually need almost any of the things that are being marketed to them. But how are they supposed to know that without our help? So if we end up being the ones that are promoting those things, we become part of the problem.
Absolutely. And part of the marketing tactics of a lot of those companies is to target people like you and me, and doulas and doctors and midwives to promote their products. So we really have to kind of be on the ball or on guard to know what messages we're taking in as well.
Absolutely, because they want our influence. We are constantly being marketed to as providers. Just last week, I got an email, and I'm sure a lot of other IBCLCs also got this same email from a random company, a startup company that has some sort of lactation product. And it literally said in the email, because you are an influencer, my influence is not for sale. I am not here to influence the people that I serve as a healthcare provider by telling them that they need your product. I don't care how good your product is. I don't care about that. I care about that clinically, but I don't care about that as a way of influencing or messaging to the people that I serve. There's those two ways that you have to look at things. Sure, all the people that we serve, they need to be able to get good information about the products or tools that they're using or thinking about using. And so where else would they get that? Well, we do have to know about things because they're using things. We absolutely do. But we have to be careful not only about not appearing as if we are tied to one company or one brand, but also that we are not inadvertently, even subconsciously putting out the message that breastfeeding is only possible if you use things, buy things, have things. That's a really important distinction. And so it's very important that we think about that when we're considering what is our practice mission and purpose and vision. I call it practice philosophy. That's a big part of it.
And it's about all of those tools, as you said. So sometimes it's about breastfeeding and all the new products that are flooding the markets, or it's about sleep and you must have this or your baby will never sleep and then you'll never sleep, or it's about what they need to wear or what vitamins they need to take. And parents are being bombarded with all of this information, and sometimes it can be hard for them to filter that out. So if we end up being part of that bombardment of information, we're not necessarily helping them.
That's right. Just like we think about the way that parents access information from the internet, they're getting a flood of information, and some of it may apply to them. A lot of it does not. Some of it is right, some of it is incorrect. And one of the ways that we help them the most as birth workers and lactation care providers is helping them to filter that information in ways that they can figure out then what actually applies to them. And as an IBCLC, part of my skill set is to be able to evaluate and assess what's going on with an individual person and their baby. So I can tell them which information actually is going to apply in their situation. And it's the same thing with the products and tools. We want to make sure that people have a way to filter all those things so that they can understand that when they need something to support their lactation journey, they know how to pick it. They know what would actually be helpful and what is most likely to be something that is going to support them versus something that may interfere in ways they can't even imagine because they're not experts on lactation.
And sometimes a tool or a product might be helpful for a particular family. And then when we're feeling unsure about where our role is with this, then sometimes people can feel, well, I'm not allowed to recommend anything because then I'm making a recommendation. But they would really benefit from this. So, how do people kind of weigh that up and how do we work that out?
So we just look at it in that same way that we just talked about. When you have the scope of practice to do an evaluation assessment of an individual person or an individual dyad, you have the details on their situation. You can absolutely recommend any tool or product or device that you know could potentially be a supportive part of their journey. If you are not able to assess somebody or evaluate somebody, that means that you should only be giving general information. You shouldn't be giving recommendations for a certain brand or a certain thing. Now, at the same time, we also have a responsibility as the experts in lactation care to advocate on behalf of parents in the other direction. When we come across a product, tool, or device that is not working the way it's intended, that is not good enough, that's not the right thing, that doesn't actually work in real life, we start getting feedback like that. We often will go back to those companies and say, we know that you feel like you're trying to help. Here's what's going on. How can you fix this product? How can you make changes? And one of the ways that's happening right now is people going back to companies that manufacture breast pumps and saying, you are providing what you call a standard size flange for your pump, and hardly anybody uses that size. So you need to change this. And that's one of the biggest advocacy messages that we have going in that direction at the moment.
That's a really big one at the moment. And big being the operative word, because these phalanges are just huge and so much bigger than would be beneficial for most people. It's not to say that we don't need some big ones, but yeah. And I've seen a lot of that really good work happening with the pump companies, which is going to benefit parents down the line. And then I think the other important thing that you said there was it's about that one-to-one support and recommendation rather than general recommendation. So if I'm with a particular family and whatever struggle they may be having, I think there might be something that might be able to support them, that I can tell them what that is without it being unethical or immoral. But then sometimes it can come into difficulty where people, because they find a product, like providers, they find a product really, really helpful, they may then choose to stock that product so that they can sell it to their clients easier. So there's easier access for their clients to that particular product. It might be hard to remain objective in that situation of recommending a product that you haven't stocked. And I know people can do it, but it does seem to be a tricky balance.
I think it's always been a tricky balance. It's a nuanced conversation. If you are explaining to somebody one to one and you are recommending a product, you should be able to explain to them why. For instance, we know that this pump is one of the better ones for maintaining milk production in the very beginning of lactation, or when you're separated from your baby, or when you're primarily using a breast pump. So we should be able to explain things like what makes it better, whether that is that it's been around for a long time. So there's a lot more research around that product, there's a lot more usage, whether it's something that we're most comfortable guiding them with. Sometimes that happens, especially in the hospital, because most hospitals provide breast pumps for people to be able to use when they're there. So that means that all the people that work in that hospital have way more experience with whatever brand the hospital picked than really anything else that, patients are going to have contact with. So it means that sometimes, when you have to explain those things to people, that provides a better amount of information for them to make their choices around. And part of that context that you give them is also, I carry this or I stock these products, which may feel like it's most convenient for you. If you don't want to buy this from me, rent this from me, here's another way you can get it. You can go to this place and rent this pump, or you can order this from Amazon, or whatever other options there are. It's important to lay those other options out for people. Sure, many people will choose the easiest option, but the point is that you have given them some options, if there are any. I mean, I can remember a day when there was one place in the town where I lived where you could rent a breast pump. So that's where you got recommended to go. There weren't any other choices, and you couldn't really order things online. So it's just important that you're really honest and clear about why you're recommending something, because it's the best product for their situation for all of these reasons. If you happen to carry it, that's a separate thing, but just do explain that and give some options.
Well, I think that's what it's about. It's about providing the information as to why you're making the recommendation based on the effectiveness of the product, but also sometimes it is, this is a product I'm most familiar with. This is what's available easily in our local area. You know what I mean? So there are other considerations to present to the parents so that they have all the information to then make a decision whether they want to look elsewhere or whether they want to go with that recommendation. Feeling stuck in your birth work business, posting nonstop, answering DMs, juggling admin, but still not getting the clients you want? It doesn't have to be this way. I've put together the Birth Workers Business Playbook, a free guide with 3 simple systems to help you get visible without spending all day online, book clients with ease, no more ghosting, streamline your admin so you can focus on what you do best. These are the exact systems I wish I had when I started, and now they're yours, totally free. Download the Birth Workers Business Playbook now and start growing your business with ease. Head to the show notes to get your link for your free copy.
That's really true too, what you said about what kind of products people have access to easily. That is an important consideration in many places. Not everybody has access to even easy delivery if they order something online. And not everybody can easily get transportation to a store where they have a lot of options for things.
And another thing that's just taken us on a little bit of a different journey that professionals, birth workers, lactation professionals can come up against is being invited to events. So either being invited to take a stand at a baby show, say for example, or being invited to talk at a sponsored event, and being able to navigate trying to even find out who the sponsors are, who the people involved are. Does it meet my own ethical background? If the WHO code is part of my work, is there any breaches of the WHO code? It can be hard to figure all that out.
You're so right. And that's always been the case also. It's something that evolves constantly. I know that you're part of Association of Lactation Consultants of Ireland, and I've been part of organizations here in the States where we host large conferences, large events, and you have to have those considerations. You have to have that information as an organization available to the people you're inviting to speak, to the vendors you're inviting to come in. You need to be organizing that type of information ahead of time so that when potential speakers come back to you, you have answers for them. Why do you make the decisions that you make? And then from the other side of that, if you're being invited to speak somewhere or, present somewhere, you need to take the time to ensure that you have researched what is going on. What is the event for? Who is it serving? Who else will be there? And what are their rules around exhibiting or marketing there? I have turned down invitations for sure for organizations and events where it was not in alignment with my values as far as how products are promoted to people. And I always make that a very careful consideration when I'm thinking about accepting an invitation, because by putting my name on their product, that means that I am involved in that. And so if what they end up doing or saying or how they represent me is not in alignment with me, then I've made a bad choice. It's not their fault, it's mine for not researching it.
And it can be very hard, in particular, because in the collective, we're talking about building our businesses and
Mhm.
promoting ourselves and being able to sustain ourselves with our businesses. If an opportunity is presented, and it can seem like a really good opportunity to get in front of an audience, to be with other well known people, or to take a stand where there might be lots and lots of pregnant people or new families coming around, it can seem very appealing to sometimes attend these type of events. And like you, I've been offered a couple of opportunities that I've had to kind of really look at and say, no, this isn't for me. I don't want to be associated with either one of the other speakers or with the products or services that were being promoted. It can be hard to kind of take that stand for yourself sometimes.
It really can. And I think another place that this happens for people nowadays is being asked to do partnerships or sponsorships or any kind of joint things online, like a social media live with a company that makes a product or something like that. It's very easy to feel flattered by an invitation to do something like that and to overlook the potential pitfalls of aligning yourself with a company that you're not really aligned. It doesn't really go with what you believe. So it's just important to take those moments to remember why they're asking you. They want your influence and they want it to seem like you are promoting what they do, what they sell or what they market. And that doesn't have to necessarily even be a product. It could also be a service that's not in alignment with what you do or what you stand for. And it's always okay to say no. It really is. And it's very important if you do say no, that you tell them why. It's not because you're just making a random decision. If you're making a decision based on something that's not in alignment with you, you could have the opportunity there to actually teach them something or give them information that could lead them to make a change that makes it more likely that you would align with them in the future.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes providers don't know that some of the other companies they may be associated with, even though if they may be, say, for example, fully WHO code compliant, that maybe someone else that they are associated with isn't, and that might be an issue. So it is important, as you said, that if we're saying no for a particular reason, that we let people know, because they deserve to have that information. They can discard it if they want to, or if it's important to them, they can take it on board.
For sure. And, it's just really critical that we remember that the WHO code only covers a few things. And there's so many other products and services out there that are potentially things that we could get tied into through all these different opportunities. And as business owners of our birth or pregnancy or lactation businesses, everything that we do, shouldn't we be marketing ourselves, right? Shouldn't we be marketing what we offer and what we stand for? And sometimes when somebody asks us to align with them, it doesn't work because it ends up being more marketing for them than it does for us. So it's also a business decision. So I guess the overall takeaway about all of those decisions is take your time. Don't react in the moment. Give yourself space to really think about it, to really look into who it is. How would they potentially gain from your partnership with them? Don't only think about how it would benefit you, but really think about why would they be inviting you? How will it help them? Because they wouldn't be doing it if it didn't have a benefit for them.
And I do think that's a really good summary of a way to view all of these opportunities or things that might come our way. And that taking the time to just pause and think about it and then research if we need to, before making a decision. Because, sometimes flattery is an easy yes. It is important to be able to just stop and say, wait, hang on, I need to make sure that this is right for me.
Although we may have different value systems or different beliefs or different purposes and missions in what we do from other people, my values may be different from yours. That doesn't make either one of us right in the whole. And it's very important to remember that when you go back to anyone else that you're considering working with, they also, just like you, believe that they are helping breastfeeding families. So you can take that thought and you can apply it to absolutely anyone. We're talking companies that flagrantly miss or disregard the code. We're talking about companies that work super hard to support parents. Everyone believes that what they are doing is going to help breastfeeding families. We all just have slightly different ways of viewing it and different ways of doing it. So let's make sure that we respect others' value systems and the things that they do when we're making these decisions and communicate that in a way that is about us. It's about me and my value system. I'm not making a judgment on you and your values or your purpose and mission. I'm simply telling you, in my world, I can't sleep at night. So it isn't about disrespecting other people and the way that they're going about trying to help families. It's simply about understanding that you have to be in alignment with your own beliefs, because otherwise you are not going to feel good about the work that you do and feel like you're serving the audience that you hope to serve.
Absolutely. And I think something that came up for me there was thinking about your own intuition. If something feels a little bit off, that it probably is, because sometimes it can feel a little bit off but it seems like good opportunity. So we may try and convince ourselves that it's not off. So sometimes it might being able to sleep at night, I think was a good analogy there. Am I going to feel good for doing this? Is this going to make me feel joy and passionate and in alignment?
Yeah, I mean, you have to know who you are, you have to know what you believe. Why did you get into the work that you're in? Who did you hope to serve by getting the education or the credentials or the skills that you've accumulated? What was your purpose when you began? And yes, your purpose can also expand and change over time, but you always have to know what that is in order to funnel these decisions through that purpose. Is this going to serve my ultimate purpose? Or is this just like a side thing that's going to take up my time and energy that isn't really going to serve the people that I intend to serve?
I think that's a lovely way to wrap that up and to finish up. So thank you very much. So if can you let people know where to find you if they'd like to find out more about the work that you do?
Oh, absolutely. I am on Instagram. My handle is IBCLC in CA, which is for California, not Canada. When I made that, I never even really thought about Canada, but I do like to explain that now. And it's just a way of saying that I am in California as well. But yeah, they can find me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way because I'll lead you anywhere else you need to go right from there.
Brilliant. And I will put your handle in the show notes as well. So thank you
Beautiful.
very much for joining me. And I hope everyone has enjoyed this conversation. Please join us in our Facebook group where we can talk about it some more. And we'll be back next week. Bye. Don't forget to download your totally free copy of the Birth Workers Business Playbook, now available for a limited time only. So check out the show notes to get your link and get your copy.